Hello, and welcome to today's PD session. Today's topic will focus around text complexity matters. My name is PMaynard, and I will be your presenter. First of all, welcome, and thank you for joining me. To begin, I would like to take a moment to review our agenda. The topic for today's PD session is text complexity matters. To begin our session, we will view a short 2-minute video entitled The Power of Literacy to get us thinking about the impact literacy can have on our students and the community in which we work. Next, we will discuss instructional shifts and how to support students in literacy, followed by a brief overview of Lexile data. We will then review a 3-part model for measuring text complexity. This information comes directly from the College and Career Readiness Standards Appendix and offers an insight into the 3 components that make up text complexity. We will then do a short CCRS ELA activity in which we will determine what are the important components when choosing text and how to make it meaningful within the classroom. We will then briefly review various examples of possible literacy strategies that can be implemented in the classroom. If you remember, you were asked to bring a lesson with you from your next week's sequencing to receive some work time on application of literacy strategies. You will have an opportunity to share out and receive feedback from your colleagues. As we close our PD session, we will discuss how the implementation of your chosen text and literary strategies will be evaluated and used as data collection tools. Lastly, you will complete an exit slip for the PD session. I like to begin PD sessions with a short video.
Evening.
This video is entitled The Power of Literacy. I chose this video not necessarily as a talking point, but as a chance to get into the mindset of how we view the importance of literacy.
Repeat after me. A.
B,
And C.
C,
A, B, C, D,
E, F, G.
no, not good, not good.
Just the sounds that words make.
cat, dog,
Calamari.
trash, on the beach.
Oh, good.
Farm, fresh. My son and I mowed the grass.
Gold
star.
Unbelievable.
Dad,
Hey, Tubbs, I read your book.
you read my book.
There are 6 instructional shifts that we are going to briefly cover today. The first shift is balancing informational and literacy texts for grades PK through 5. The first shift discusses finding a balance of the text that you can choose for the classroom. CCRS emphasizes the use of informational text within the classroom, depending on the age of the students in your class, their specific educational needs, and the content will determine what the texts look like. CCRS is designed to be cross-curricular. This means that students are receiving literacy emphasis across all content areas through the use of text. The standards are designed to support a curriculum in which 50% of the text in the classroom is informational. The second shift is building knowledge in the discipline grades 6 through 12. There needs to be an emphasis on literary experiences when planning and during instruction time. Learning needs to occur from domain-specific texts across all subjects, and students are expected to learn from what they read. The third shift focuses on the staircase of text complexity. Students need to be reading grade-appropriate texts centered around classroom instruction. One thing that all teachers struggle with is creating the time within their lessons and a space within their classroom for an opportunity for close reading of the text. It is crucial to provide this opportunity for our students. This also allows time for student choice in literacy. Teachers must provide differentiated scaffolding that is appropriate for the students in which they are working with. And above all, text complexity matters. The fourth shift focuses on text-based answers. Classroom discussions should be rich and rigorous, dependent on a common text. Classroom experiences need to be deeply connected with the text. And students should develop habits that create arguments, conversations, and writing points as a way to assess comprehension. Shift 5 is about writing from sources. CCRS stresses the use of evidence to inform or make an argument. These skills are developed through writing practice that responds to ideas, factors, events, and arguments presented in the text they read. The final shift is focused on academic vocabulary. Vocabulary is built based on grade-level complex text. This shift focuses on literary terms in order to strategically comprehend vocabulary found in the text. And teachers and students actively using academic vocabulary in the classroom through both speaking and writing. Let's look at a Lexile overview that shows an average of reading skills required for several different mile markers in life. The yellow bars indicate average Lexile requirement within the category, while the black bars on each side of the yellow indicate the Lexile range. For example, if we look at the high school level of 11th through 12th grade, we see that the average Lexile is 1120 to 1150, with a very small margin of variances. If we look farther up the chart, we see the workplace averages ranges between 1150 to 1350, with a large margin of variances of several hundred on each side. So let's look at the CCRS expectations of Lexiles across the grade levels. The first line we will put in is the top point for grades 2 through 5 with a top bandwidth of 980 Lexile. The next line represents grades 6 through 8 with a top bandwidth of 1155 Lexile. If we look where this line falls, we see that we are in the average Lexile range of workplace, military, and the level in which the majority of the SAT, ACT, and AP exams fall in according to their Lexile levels. The third line we are going to add represents grades 9 through 10 with a top bandwidth of 1305. At this point, we have moved past the average high school and ACT, SAT, AP exams. We are also above the average military Lexile and passing the citizenship Lexile. We are in the average for the workplace and community college. The final line we are going to add is grade 11 through CCR. CCR states that the average individual is considered to be literate with a Lexile of 1215 to 1355 by the time they graduate high school. According to national averages, they are within the university level and GRE Lexile levels. What are your thoughts? Is this information surprising? What do we need to do as educators to ensure that our students are literate and able to succeed at a higher level? Let's move on in our presentation and discuss the three-part model for measuring text complexity. As previously stated, this information comes directly from the CCRS appendix. There are three parts to the pyramid that make up text complexity. They are qualitative, quantitative, and reader and task. The first one we are going to look at is qualitative dimensions of text complexity. When we look for qualitative text complexity, we are looking for the framework, such as levels of meaning or purpose, structure, language conventionality and clarity, and the knowledge of demands for the reader. When you choose text for your classroom, what criteria do you use? How do you ensure that you are meeting all the learning needs of your students? The second part to the pyramid is quantitative dimensions of text complexity. This refers to the depth of the text and the complexity in which the readers must comprehend. Complexity can include word length or frequency, sentence length, text flow, and how long the text is. When we think about our ESL students in the classroom, we must understand that we will not be able to comprehend a text that is multiple pages and includes high levels of academic vocabulary. We need to choose texts that meet grade level expectations while still meeting the needs of our individual students. Does anyone have an example of how they chose differentiated text for their classroom? What criteria do you use to choose those texts? The last part of the pyramid is reader and task. These are specific to the reader, such as motivation, knowledge, and experiences. This also includes the creation of appropriate assessments that address students' experiences while considering the student's understanding of the subject matter. At this time, we are going to transition into a group activity in which we are going to look at how to appropriately choose text for the classroom. For the purpose of this activity, we are going to use CCRS ELA for grades 3 through 12. In content-based groups of 4 to 5, you will complete the graphic organizer based on the informational text provided. In each box, write down a minimum of one key point from the identified section of the article. Make sure these key points are influential to you as an educator. I will give you about 7 minutes to complete as much of the graphic organizer as possible. Go ahead and divide into groups and begin. When you have 1 minute left, I will let you know. At this time, you should be wrapping up where you are at. Remember, if you are not done, that is okay. In your groups, choose someone to share out one of your boxes. Share your one key point and why you chose those key points. 1 minute share out per group. While other groups share out, please fill in and add on to your graphic organizer. Were there any aha moments you had or learned about choosing appropriate texts? Here is an example of some of the key points I found when reading the article and completing the graphic organizer. One key point that I believe to be crucial is the necessity to balance different types of literature. For the next couple of slides, I'm going to skim through a lot of the information. When I email all this information out to you, these resources will be attached, providing you with the opportunity to review and implement within your classroom. Briefly, I want to discuss with you literary strategies in the classroom. Once you have chosen a text that you want to implement, you must be sure to have a clear structure in which you are going to have the students break down the material. This can be done in multiple ways. A few are shown within this presentation. With CCRS, it is suggested that content be broken into 3 stages: before reading, during reading, and after reading. These strategies can be used to help break down the complexity of the text. When we look at these, it is important to remember that these strategies and many more similar strategies can be differentiated for your students and be adapted to your curriculum. Here in this chart, you can see that we have before reading, during reading, and after reading. These I found on a resource, which the link is provided in this PowerPoint, which you may visit at a later time. Before reading, several options include KWL charts, generating questions. These questions can be student-generated, group-generated, or the entire class can contribute, and reading purpose or reading approach. During reading, students can visualize, make inferences about the text, use various graphic or visual organizers, or nowadays we also have maps, or students can use a series of highlighting text procedures. After reading, students can summarize main ideas and details, they can make connections with real-world applications, or they can have the opportunity to create a product. At this point, you probably are thinking, how can I use this in my classroom? Many of the literacy strategies can be adapted to meet the needs of various content settings. For example, this slide shows an adaptation to the KWL chart for mathematics. In this example, KWL has been transformed into KNWS. K. What factors do I know from the information in the problem? N. What information do I not need? W. What does the problem want to find? And S. What strategy or operations will I use to solve the problem? So if a student is presented with a math problem, they can then look at the problem and in a graphic organizer similar to this, take out components and say, okay, what do I know the information in the problem? Break it down. Then they can categorize each component, helping differentiate it not only for themselves, but also as a literary technique. Here is an example of practicing comprehension skills in the science classroom. This is called the Freyer model. It is a 5-box graphic organizer in which a single word, phrase, or scientific component will be written in the center, while the 4 outer boxes allow space for definition, characteristics, examples, and non-examples. This can be easily adapted for various content settings. So as you can see, in this example, physical changes in the center, and on the outskirts we have the definition, characteristics, examples, and non-examples. This can be easily changed if you're learning about things on the periodic table. You can put the element in the middle and the different components are on the outside. This is an example of an activity created by a social studies teacher when reading informational articles about world affairs. In this example, the teacher has the students follow a specific guideline for before and while reading the text. This is a great example of how to break down informational text. The teacher asks the student, what do I do before I read nonfiction? And what do I do while I read nonfiction? If you look below, it's separated into 2 columns with questions and procedures. For example, what do I do before I read nonfiction? The teacher has the students read the title of the chapter, section, or story. Ask myself, what do I know about this subject? Predict, what am I going to read about? Look at the pictures, maps, and diagrams and read the captions. Observe how the section or chapter is laid out, and even seeing how long the section or chapter is. And lastly, here is an example of literacy and listening in the music classroom using a writing tool called BME. B asks the students to look for themes or foreshadowing. M asks if there is detail or if there is a story behind the music. And E asks about the structure. At this time, please pull out the lesson plan you were instructed to bring for this PD session. For this next week, we want to see you implement the importance of choosing complex text appropriate for your content areas. We're going to give you 7 minutes to review your lessons for next week and find 1 or 2 points in which you will make a change to incorporate text and an accompanying literacy strategy. How are you going to choose the appropriate text? Remember, some of the shifts in thinking about text complexity we discussed, and the appropriate ways to choose text for your classroom. What literacy strategy are you going to implement? This can be one that we discussed today, one that you know a colleague has implemented and been successful, or one that you have been dying to try. Then, we want you to draft the text and strategy usage into your lesson. How are you going to implement the strategy? How are you going to assess its effectiveness? How does the strategy align to the district goals? In your table group, share out your choice of text, your literacy strategy, and how you are going to assess student knowledge. Group members should provide feedback and any additional ideas of how to implement the text and strategy. Could I please have a volunteer from each group to share out? Throughout the course of the week, the PLC coaches, instructional coaches, and administration will review lesson plans and visit classrooms to monitor for inclusion of appropriate text complexity and literary strategies. They will be using the evaluation tool as the benchmark for criteria to collect data. Teachers will assess the use of their text and literary strategies prior to their PLC meeting and present the data. Data will also be submitted to the PLC coaches as a summative tool to determine areas of strength and growth. Before you leave, please complete the provided exit slip and return to the front table. Thank you for your commitment to our students, parents, and community as we work toward our District 2025 goal of strengthening literacy. Thank you for attending and have a great day.